excited to be here, you guys. Thank you for the warm welcome. Thank you for having me. Flew all the way from Puerto Rico to be here just for you. Not exactly. I brought my wife and we're having a great time. So I want to talk about on market. You guys that follow me on my YouTube channel know that I talk quite a bit about on market. I've done over 1,000 on market wholesale transactions over the past several years. It's something that I still do today. It's my number one way of doing wholesaling. Is still coming. There we go.
Almost screwed it up, but I didn't.
You didn't. And I want to share with you why this is such a powerful method of acquiring deals. How many of you, by raise of hand, are doing off-market, direct to seller? Okay, I see a lot of hands. How many of you are doing on-market wholesaling? Okay, so I've seen a fair amount of hands. That's exciting. That's awesome to see. And I hope that I've been instrumental in that decision, because there's so much misinformation out there about on-market and how to wholesale houses on-market. But before I get into that, I want to actually cover 7 challenges with on-market and how to overcome them. Because as you guys know, if you guys have tried on-market wholesaling, there are some challenges to doing it. So I want to talk about specifically those 7 challenges, how to overcome them. But before we do that, there are 2 major myths about on-market and wholesaling. The first one is that distressed sellers don't list for sale on market. Now, how many of you believe that or thought that or maybe have heard that? Anybody heard that before? The reality is that there are just as many distressed motivated sellers on market as there are off market. What happens is a seller is in distress. They've got a dilapidated property. They've got some urgency, maybe they've got some motivation, and they decide to list with a real estate agent. They agree to pay a 5 to 6% commission. And the reason why is they want to get their property to as many eyeballs as they can. So they go on market, that means it goes public. They do agree to pay those commissions, which is going to cut into their net proceeds, but they get this maximum exposure that happens, which is great because they're going to get the highest price the market will pay, ideally. And so this happens on a regular basis. Now, the second myth that's very common is that you can't wholesale an on-market property. How many of you have heard that before? Okay, so I see a lot of hands. You cannot wholesale an on-market property. And that's also not true. The reality is there's a real estate agent representing the seller, but once you get a contract, the fundamentals of wholesaling are the same. You can assign that contract. Now, we'll talk about a no assignment in a minute because that does happen, but the fundamentals of wholesaling do not change because there is a real estate agent. The real estate agent can make things difficult, they can make it harder, but the fundamentals do not change. So all that means now is we get to figure out how to overcome those objections and really dominate on market. Now, there's one primary reason. There's a few reasons, but there's one major reason why I love on-market wholesaling so much. And what do you think that is? Somebody shout it out. It's free. It's free. It does not cost you in marketing to do an on-market deal. To me, that's a game changer. And especially if you're brand new into the business and you don't have a marketing budget. Who had a marketing budget when they got into the business? Or who's working on their first deal and doesn't really have a marketing budget? Right? That can be a very big challenge that limits your ability to get into the business, is lack of funds for marketing that are absolutely necessary to do private, direct to seller. So for me, I love that I can build relationships with agents. I can acquire properties on market that do not cost me any marketing dollars. Okay, so let's talk about these challenges now. There are 7 major challenges. You have to be able to overcome these to dominate on market. The first challenge is if you're dealing with an incompetent or difficult, I want to say stupid, but we're not going to say that, a difficult agent. Because the agent is the gatekeeper to the seller, that agent can cause some challenges, can put up some resistance, they can make the process difficult. They can even tell the seller, you know what, let's not do this, and persuade the seller not to take your offer. So the agent can cause some problems. So let's talk about how we can manage that. The real challenge here is animosity towards wholesalers. Does anybody know a real estate agent who does not like wholesalers? Okay, so what happened? That agent had a bad experience with a wholesaler, and now all wholesalers are bad. So your job as a wholesaler is to win the agent over that you actually perform, that you're reliable, that you close on your contracts. Absolutely critical. So this was a question that was asked to me on social media a few days ago. I posted about this if you guys follow me. But the question was, what do I say if a real estate agent asks me if I'm a wholesaler? Now he asked, do I tell the truth? Yes. Yes, always tell the truth. But how do we answer that question? So I responded, first of all, what I do is I avoid the word wholesaler. I never actually use the word wholesaler or wholesaling when talking to agents, because I just know automatically they're gonna tune me out and shut me off and say no to me. So if I'm asked, and I'm often asked, are you a wholesaler or do you plan on wholesaling this property? My answer is, if you mean do I sometimes assign my contract? Yes, I do that. But then I explain to them, I say, listen, assigning my contract just is one strategy. We may take the property down and just resell it. We may take the property down and fix and flip it. We may keep it as a rental property. We have multiple exits, but then I get to the point of their concern and the reason why they're worried. And I say, but whatever we end up doing, I don't quite know yet. I make that decision deal by deal. Whatever I end up doing, I perform on my contract. I keep my obligations, which means the seller's gonna get exactly what we have in our contract. You're gonna get paid a commission. I'm going to close my transactions. Now, don't say that if you can't and you're uncertain, right? But this is how important it is to create that relationship. If you think about it, a real estate agent who's got a distressed listing, do you know how much work that is for that agent to have that listing? Typically, these are lower priced homes, so they're not earning that much in commission anyway. These properties are in disrepair. They know they're gonna have issues with inspections and appraisals, and they know they have a battle to close this deal. So when you come in as a wholesaler and you build that relationship with that agent, you offer some major solutions that are gonna make that agent's life really nice, a lot easier. So I have the same selling points I do with an agent as I do with a seller. Listen, I close quickly. I buy it as is. I'm not gonna ask for you to go back and do repairs. I'm gonna make this really easy for you, and I'm gonna be a source of repeat deals. I wanna buy all of your distressed listings. And so then the agent who catches that vision, they see what you're doing, that you perform, there's trust there, it becomes a beautiful relationship. I have agents now that bring me deals, and we've closed dozens of contracts with one agent, right? It's not like direct to seller, one time and done, one and done, not with agents. The idea here is multiple transactions over time. So that's how powerful that can be. Challenge number 2 is a non-assignable contract. What does that mean? Some contracts have a no assignment clause. In fact, because we're dealing with on market, who writes the contract? Whose contract is used? Yeah, the real estate agent. They're gonna use their state approved contract. So unlike direct to seller where you have your contract, you're now at the mercy of the agent's contract. And so we now have to instruct that agent as to what things we want in that contract. Now I'm gonna, in a little bit, I'll show you 10 things that we make sure we get in our contract with agents. But my point here is that contract might have what's called a no assignment clause, which says you cannot assign your contract. Has anybody seen that in a contract? Okay, all bank properties have a no assignment clause, and you cannot waive it. You can't cross it out. Short sales, anything bank related, all have no assignments. Some state contracts in some states have it in there as just part of their standard contract. Now you can cross it out and sell or agree, but you have to do that. So pay attention to your contract with an agent if it has a no assignment. But let me give you a solution. One is to double close. Now, I know the concern with double closing is, well, now I need funding because I'm gonna buy it. Now I gotta fund it. And then I'm gonna turn around and sell it 5 minutes later to my cash buyer. I'm gonna pick up fees for financing. I'm gonna pick up closing fees because now I'm paying fees to buy it, paying fees to sell it. I get that, but every single wholesaler, I believe, every single wholesaler today better be able to double close because the assignment is getting tricky. It's getting difficult. Some title companies are not wanting to underwrite assignment, and some hard money lenders for cash buyers do not want to do assignments. So it's becoming, and regulation is requiring licensing in some places. So the assignment is getting more challenging, and so I'm a huge believer in being able to double close. What happens when you double close? what's so great about it is you perform on the contract. You said you were going to buy it, you had a price, you're the buyer, you're the principal on the contract, and you perform. It solves all problems when you perform on a contract, even if you turn around and sell it 5 minutes later. And so last year, I opened a transactional funding business where we now do this. We provide this service. If you go to usejerryscash.com, you can register for a training. We basically do the first one for free and then lock you in at a 1% rate for subsequent deals. So it's a great way to handle a no assignment clause, or if for whatever other reason you want to just double close the deal. The second technique I want to share with you is what I call my LLC hack strategy. And the way this works is I still do a single closing. What I do is I set up a single member LLC, brand new LLC. The LLC is now the buyer on the contract. And then rather than assign my contract, I sell 100% membership rights in the LLC. Now, what does the LLC own? The contract. Who becomes the new member of the LLC? Your cash buyer. Did we assign our contract? No, but we did one closing still. Isn't that genius? If you go to llcflipperkit.com, I give you all the paperwork that my attorney created to do this. I've done hundreds of these with bank properties that have no assignment clauses. Okay, so single closing, don't need to double close, really cool. And I give you all the tools to do it, free. Oh, by the way, this is free, so go get that if you guys want to be able to do that LLC hack strategy. Challenge number 3 is proof of funds. So pretty much in every situation, I think, with on market, that agent is going to require proof of funds. Proof of funds is actually showing that you have the funds available equal to the price that you contracted, right? The purchase price. When it comes to proof of funds, there's either a soft or a hard. There's a difference, and it's important to understand the difference. A soft proof of funds is basically a pre-approval letter. It's basically meaningless, right? It doesn't really have any meat to it because nothing's been underwritten and there's no actual cash being shown. So this is a letter that basically says, yeah, assuming certain criteria is met, funding is available for you to buy this house. Okay, now 90% of the time, a soft proof of funds is accepted by a real estate agent. They take that proof of funds, that letter, and they're okay with it. It's sufficient. So that's about 90% of the time that we found. If you're part of my software Flipster, we actually give unlimited proof of funds letters if you're a pro or prime level subscriber. These are custom to the price, to the address, to you. And this works, again, 90% of the time, this is gonna work for agents. They're gonna be happy with that proof of funds. If you wanna check out Flipster, you can do a 7-day free trial, join flipster.com. But that proof of funds is really important for on market. You really need to have a solution because it's going to come up every single time. A hard proof of funds is, someone mentioned a bank statement. So it's showing liquid cash, or it could be a full approval. So let's say that you're using hard money. You submit your deal and hard money says, okay, I approve you for funding and here's approval letter for your deal. That would also be a hard proof of funds. So 10% of the time, an agent is gonna want hard proof of funds, or they're not gonna allow you to contract on the property. So how do we handle this? What if you don't have, $100,000 cash in a checking account and you can't really go get an approval from a lender until what? You have a contract. So it's the chicken before the egg. So here's how we handle this. Here's the script that you're gonna wanna use. My partners or investors I work with, they can provide a hard proof of funds in the form of a full approval or a bank statement, just like you want, but I can't ask them for that unless I first have a fully executed contract on the property. So let's do this. Let's add a contingency clause to the contract that I will provide a hard proof of funds within X number of days, 10 days of accepted contract. Now, what does that now allow you to do if you get this, if they agree to this? What can you do now that you've got a little bit of time, a window? You go find your cash buyer, very good, and what? Get their proof of funds. They provide proof of funds. You now meet that obligation that that agent wanted to see, and you move forward with your deal. Now, again, they have to agree to this, right? But this is a solution if you can't provide sufficient proof of funds. Challenge number 4, I started to talk about a minute ago, earnest money. Earnest money is very common on almost all on-market properties, $500,000. It can be pretty high, it can be $5,000, $10,000. So earnest money, though, is going to be common. The way earnest money works is once you get an accepted offer, title is going to hold that earnest money in escrow, and it's going to get applied towards the purchase. If you wholesale the deal, it gets reimbursed to you. So you're floating that money for however long until you're closing, 2, 3, 4 weeks. Earnest money comes up quite a bit because what if I don't have earnest money, right? What if I can't put down earnest money? So here's another solution. Again, we're solving problems here. We'll go to that agent and we'll say, listen, I'm going to put an inspection contingency in our contract. And then in that contract, you're going to say earnest money to be paid at the end of inspection. At the end of inspection. Again, if we've got a 10-day inspection and earnest money is due not at the beginning, but at the end of the 10 days, what can we do now? That's right. You go to your cash buyer, you get the cash buyer to give you earnest money, you turn that earnest money in as your earnest money. Cash buyer pays your earnest money. Who thinks that's cool? Awesome. It's a great way to get your earnest money paid. Have your cash buyer do it. And this is very common. We do this quite a bit. A lot of agents will agree to this. I simply just say, listen, I really don't want to tie up my earnest money. I really don't want to wire it and put it in escrow if I've got inspection, because we're going to go in there and inspect the property and maybe we find issues. So we'd prefer to pay it after inspection. And so they may agree to that. They may not agree to that. Okay, I'm just providing solutions and letting you be aware of the challenges that are going to arise. Challenge number 5 is getting access to the property, because how does it work with on market? Who has to be there when you get into the property? The agent usually, or should technically, give access to the property. So this is a real challenge. This actually has killed deals before, because if we're wholesaling, who do we need to get in that property? Our buyers, right? We have to get our buyers in there. So I don't do with on market, I don't do like this, one at a time buyer showings on properties. We set up one time, we call it an inspection party. We get all our buyers there at that window of time, and we get that agent to allow us to walk through. How do we say it? We say, my partners, investors, and contractors need to come through this property. We need to set up a window of time where we can get in there. In our contract, then we need to get that in writing. So if it's vacant, we simply say, seller to give buyer unrestricted access via a contract or lockbox. Now, the agent may or may not agree to this, but if it's vacant and no one's living there, do we really need the agent present to open the property and let us walk through the property? No, it's vacant. What are we worried about here? It's a distressed property. So I find that I can get most agents to agree to just give me unrestricted access, which is amazing, because now if I want, I can send contractors, cash buyers, I can send anybody I want over there and not have that agent being present issue come up. If it's occupied, if the seller's living in the property, that creates some challenges. So what we say, seller to give buyer access with 24-hour notice. This is important to get in writing though, because if a seller does not want to open the property up or isn't, friendly about that and helpful, then it's going to create some issues to get people in your property. So again, we get this in writing. That's how we solve this problem of showings. Challenge number 6 is some cash buyers don't buy on market. Not because the numbers don't work, but just because they don't like on market. Does anybody know a cash buyer who you took them your on market deal and they said, I don't want anything to do with that, it's on market? Yeah, I have it happen all the time. In fact, it happens about 25 to 50% of the time. It's really frustrating for me because they'll agree to the number and then afterwards find out it's on market and then now all of a sudden not be interested. And it really shouldn't matter where the deal comes from. I had a cash buyer one time tell me, I could have bought that, Jerry. It was on market. I could have bought that. My response was, yeah, but you didn't. I did. Right? And the numbers worked a minute ago. Now they don't work. What's the problem here? Who cares that it was on market? But this is becoming less and less of an issue. Why do you think? This used to be more of a problem for us, but why is this less of an issue? No inventory. People don't care. They want a deal. It doesn't matter. Right? Most buyers are less concerned about it being on market. They're more concerned about getting a good deal. So again, the numbers have to work, obviously, but how do we handle this? My approach is to be very proactive about it. I'll say to my cash buyers ahead of time, hey, if I find an on-market deal and I negotiate and get the contract and bring it to you at your desired formula, your buy price, will you have an issue if it's on market? Okay, and I have that question. By the way, I'm a cash buyer, I buy on market, and I pay a finder's fee, I buy nationwide, virtual, while I live in Puerto Rico, If you go to my10kcheck.com, you can learn how to get in my Finder program and submit deals to me. And I don't care if it's on market. I want a deal that fits my numbers. And so that's the type of cash buyer that you want to look for. One that is driven by the formula, they know their numbers, they know what they're looking for, and they could care less where you got the deal. Okay, challenge number 7 is that on market is competitive. And of course it's competitive, it's public now, so everybody and their brother knows about it. So what does that mean? It means you have to create a competitive advantage. And I'm gonna give you 4 tips on how to create a competitive advantage. Tip number 1 is to use what I call the double dip strategy. Now, the double dip strategy is game changer. In fact, I don't think you should even attempt on-market wholesaling unless you're doing this technique. The way it works is, rather than work with a buyer's agent to submit offers, you're gonna go directly to the listing agent. And you're gonna offer that listing agent to represent you as the buyer. So think about it, the listing agent is getting 3% for the listing from the seller, and now they're getting the other 3%, assuming it's a 6%, from you as the buyer's agent. They're essentially doubling their commission by working with you. Now, what does that do for your relationship with that agent? Oh yeah, they're gonna make twice as much working with you on deals as they would with a buyer's agent. They're gonna be highly motivated to work with you. This is technically called dual agency, when the agent represents both sides. And some states do not allow dual agency. How many of you here are from Texas? I've talked to a bunch of people from Texas. In Texas, Florida, and a handful of other states, you are not allowed to do dual agency. But trust me when I say this, the double dip still works in Texas and Florida. There's workarounds that agents will do. They'll do a transaction coordinator where they don't represent either party. I had one deal in Texas where this was really creative. What the agent did is he didn't charge a buyer commission and charged 6% for the listing. The seller already committed the 6%, so they don't really care where the commission's coming from. But that was the way that the agent worked around the non-dual agency. Or they'll do a designated agency and maybe bring someone from their office to represent you. The point here is just offer it. Just say to that agent, I'm an investor, I pay all cash, I can close quickly, I can make your life really easy as is. I'd like to give you my side of the commission in this transaction. How does that sound? And let that agent figure out how they're gonna structure that if it's a non-dual agency state like Texas or Florida. Okay, is that helpful? But trust me guys, I have a lot of students doing this in those states. I've done it in those states. It's still happening every single day. It's very motivating for that agent to want to work with you. Okay, tip number 2 is speed. Speed is the key to this. So here's how it works for me. You've got to create all of your searches for distressed properties in your market. You can set those up on MLS, you can set those up on Zillow and Redfin. As soon as a new listing comes available, we have a window of time and you better be on that property. We're doing a 30-second analysis and we're on the phone. And when I'm on the phone with that agent, I'm having my double dip conversation. I'm giving them my cash offer. And what I'm trying to get that agent to do is get my offer approved with the seller and stop all other showings. Now, what I found is most investors, and especially retail people, they're really lazy. It's gonna take them a day or 2 to set up a showing. You've got a window of time where you can sneak in there. If all the stars align, you gotta have an agent willing to push. You gotta have a seller motivated to take your cash offer. But if you're quick at this, you can get some deals locked up right away. I had one time where I saw the pop-up come in my email about a new listing. I looked at it, I knew that market. Instantly I saw the price, I saw the picture, and I'm like, that's a deal. Picked up the phone, no answer. It just rang. So I text the agent, no reply. Call again, no reply. Finally, she calls me back about 10 minutes later and she says, yeah, I saw you texting and calling. I was on the phone with another cash buyer. And I said, yeah, I'm calling about your listing too. And they said, yeah, it's already locked up. 60 seconds, I lost the deal. Someone else picked up the phone, she answered it before I called. That's today's market, right? That's how fast some of these deals can go. If they're priced aggressively, if the seller's ready to take that offer, and if the agent's willing to push. So what I do with agents is I try to do a verbal first, written contract second. Preferably, I'd like to get it in writing first, but a lot of agents don't want to spend the time. So what I'll say to the agent is I'll say, hey, here's my number. Can you call the seller right now? Right now, call the seller, present my cash offer to them on the phone. If they say yes, or counter or whatever, then let's follow up and put it in writing. But let's get this done right now. And I push really hard on this. Let's get this done right now. Can you call the seller right now? And if I can get that agent to just call the seller and present my cash offer and get the verbal, then that agent can follow up with the DocuSign and we can get it in writing. And then I'll tell the agent, I'll say, listen, if we don't get this done right now and we wait till tomorrow, you're gonna have 20 showings and you're gonna be dealing with buyer's agents. If we hustle right now and the seller's ready to take this offer, we can get this done and everybody will win. The agent will get twice the commission, seller gets a number they're happy with, I get another deal. Okay, so speed is critical. The third tip is to use terms to your benefit. So a lot of times in real estate, we think that price is everything. Whoever has the best price is gonna get the deal. And I found with on market especially, because now the seller's looking at multiple offers possibly, is I'll use terms to my favor. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. And if you can't do this, you can't do this, but I'm able to win out big because I can be very aggressive with my terms. Meaning, I'll put a $5,000 non-refundable earnest money and waive inspection. Now, I only do that if I'm confident in my numbers and in the deal. But I'll waive inspection, make my earnest money non-refundable, and I'll make it big. I've done $10,000, $20,000, I've done $50,000 in earnest money. Now, why am I offering such a big earnest money and why am I making it non-refundable? Why am I doing that? I'm making my offer more attractive, not with price, but with terms. That you can close quicker, waive inspections, put down bigger earnest money. Things like that can make your offer much more powerful. I'll tell you a quick story I had. I made an offer and it was a hot deal, priced really good. We didn't get the deal locked up in time, and next thing you know, here's other offers from buyer's agents. Now the listing agent was like on my side, wanted me to win, obviously, double commission. But she said, listen, we've got 2 other offers right now that are, $15,000 higher than your cash offer. Are you willing to beat that number? I can go back to the seller and recommend that they take your offer, right? So now the agent's working for me now, right? Who's the agent working for? Jerry. But you got to come up on price because the seller's looking at the numbers now. And I said to the agent, I said, you know what? Tell me about the terms of those other offers. So as he told me, $1,000 earnest money, inspection. And so then I came in with really aggressive terms, but stayed at my price. I said, go back to the seller. I'm not going to come up to $10,000 and $15,000 to match their price. But what I will do is I'll close in 7 days and I'll put a $10,000 earnest money, non-refundable, and waive inspection. And the seller took my offer. Why? Because they felt a whole lot more comfortable with my offer and my terms than they did with these other offers. See how powerful terms can be? So use terms to your advantage when you're dealing with on market. Tip number 4 is you have to look at on market from a volume perspective. You've got to make a lot of offers. I say this all the time, and really it's not that much. I think the magic number is 5 a day. If you make 5 offers a day, 5 days a week, that's 25 offers a week, that's 100 offers a month, you will, and I can say this with certainty, you will get a deal. If you make 100 offers, you're going to get a deal. You're going to get that one time where all the stars align, seller's ready, agent's working for you, price is right, everything works, and you get that contract. Honestly, I'm making 5 offers a day in an hour. I can get through the analysis fast because I'm good at it now. I know my market, so it doesn't take me a long time to figure out values. I know what the numbers are. I know what buyers pay. That just comes with practice. It comes with time. But if you can get to that 5 offers a day, you're going to really create the momentum that you need. Now, I feel like in this business with on market, you need about 25 to 30 solid relationships with agents to be doing 3 to 5 deals a month. Okay, it takes about 25 to 30 agent relationships where they're bringing you deals now. They're bringing you deals. They're working with you on their listings to start doing the 3 to 5 deals a month on market, 0 marketing costs. Who thinks that's pretty cool? It's really cool. Here's why, again, this is so extremely powerful. I love the idea of automating and systematizing and leveraging my efforts in the business. And I feel like if I can create a relationship with an agent who's going to get a dozen distressed property listings in a year, and if that agent will call me before he lists those properties, called a pocket listing, right, where that's allowed, if that agent will call me before it's listed and I can run my numbers and get my offer in, and I can get that deal before it goes public and before I have to compete with everybody else, how powerful is that? That's very powerful, because that agent out there basically is doing all of the marketing for you. They're talking to dozens and hundreds of sellers, and then they're getting those listing agreements with these sellers. And now you just step right into their leverage of what they're doing to get those listings. And those agents then keep bringing you those deals. It's an extremely powerful way to build the business. And again, zero marketing cost. I don't see how you can beat that. Okay, so let's talk about what needs to be included in the offer to agents, right? Because again, they're gonna use their state-approved contract, which means you need to make sure that they're getting the things in that contract that you need to allow you to wholesale that deal. First, obviously, is the name, right? The name on the contract and your address, that's a given. You've got your price. You've got your funding, which is gonna be cash. You've got your proof of funds. That's gonna be a letter. If you have a letter, if you use Flipster, you can use the letters in there. We wanna make sure that we have free and clear title. That's pretty normal. An inspection contingency. Now, the inspection contingency is how you protect your earnest money. Because during the inspection contingency, your earnest money is refundable. After inspection, it's what? Non-refundable, which means if you don't perform on the contract, guess what happens? Earnest money. You always protect your earnest money. If you can waive your inspection, that's gonna make your offer way more powerful. I don't just automatically waive my inspections. I only use that as a negotiating tactic. I want a window of time. Here's the technique I do. I get a 10-day inspection. I get the contract at the number I believe is a good number. I then source my deal to my cash buyers. I get feedback from my cash buyers, and what are my cash buyers gonna tell me? Is my number good that I brought it to them at? Is this a good number? If it's not a good number, I find out why. I ask my cash buyer, what number would you pay for this deal if you don't like the number I brought it to you at? Then I now have information. I have real live market data about my deal inside my inspection contingency. Now, what happens if I get the contract for $50,000, I take it to my cash buyers for $60,000, and a bunch of them go look at my deal and they come back and they say, the most I can pay for this deal is $50,000, which is your contract price. Who sees a problem? Problem, right? You have the contract for 50 and the highest cash buyer will pay 50. So you don't really have a deal. You over-contracted on your deal. But you're inside your inspection contingency, so what can you do? You can go back to the agent and renegotiate. Now be very careful about this. If you do this wrong, you're gonna burn your relationship with the agent. It's more important to preserve the relationship with the agent than get a deal done. Who agrees? It's always more important about the relationship. It's never about the money, always about the relationship. So what I do is I prep my agent beforehand. I say to the agent, listen, we're gonna sign a contract right now for $50,000. I'm fairly confident that that's a really good number that works for me, but I need 10 days because I've got to get over to the property with my partners, investors, and contractors and make sure we like this property, like it meets all the things we're looking for. So I say to them, let's sign the contract, give me that 10 days, and then we're gonna get in there. And then I tell the agent, I say, listen, if I find something wrong that makes $50,000 no longer a good deal for me, I'm gonna let you know right away. So what did I just prep the agent for? A renegotiation. And then when I come back and say, you know what, 50 is not a number that works, they're ready for it. They're anticipating it. They're not offended. They're not upset because I never promised them 50 was the number I was going to close at. I upfront made that very clear to them. And I never just want a new number just because. I always have very legitimate reasons. So I'll come back and I'll say, listen, I thought the rehab was gonna be this number, it's actually this number. I didn't know that it needed a new roof. I didn't think it needed a new roof. After taking a look, it needs a new roof. That's adding to my rehab budget. Now, where are you getting all this data from? Your cash buyers. So when your cash buyers come and they say, 50 is the most I can pay, I say to them what? Why? What am I not seeing that you're seeing? Well, it's on a busy road. It's got a bad floor plan. I didn't like this. The repairs were more than I thought. Whatever it is that they're telling you is now your feedback to then go back to that agent and renegotiate. But let me make something very clear here. This is not a strategy where we go in to renegotiate. I never go in high intentionally to come down low. That will burn bridges. I always go in at what I think is the best number to win at, Then I do due diligence with my cash buyers during my inspection window. If I have to renegotiate, I will during my inspection time. If they say no to my adjusted number, then we terminate the contract inside my inspection, and guess what I get back now? Earnest money. Guys, this is zero risk wholesaling. Zero risk wholesaling because I didn't spend any money on marketing and I protected my earnest money, so not even that's in jeopardy. Who likes zero risk wholesaling? Pretty cool. Zero risk wholesaling. This is how you do it. Now, I mentioned earlier that sometimes I'll waive inspection, I'll put bigger earnest money down. When I do that, I know that I'm increasing my risk because if I waive inspection and I put down a bigger earnest money, non-refundable, I could get myself in a situation where my earnest money is in jeopardy. Like I could lose my $5,000 earnest money or whatever. So here's a tactic that I do because I'm waiving inspections a lot because it's the only way to get the deal is you waive your inspection, right, in today's market. So I'll tell the agent, I'll say, listen, I'll waive my inspection. And they'll say, great, seller agreed. I'm gonna send you over a DocuSign, watch for that. It's gonna come over in the next hour. Okay, so I verbally have the deal, haven't yet signed. Even if I sign, the seller has to sign. So in that small window of an hour, 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours, guess what I do? I do my inspection. So my boots on the ground is ready at a moment's notice. I have, in whatever market I'm working in, if it's a brand new market, it may take me a minute to get somebody. If it's in one of my existing markets, I've already got this established. I call up my boots on the ground, which is someone local to the deal, and in 15 minutes, I've got somebody at the property doing a walkthrough. And they're giving me pictures and video, and I get that back. Now I've done my, quote, inspection, meaning I've seen the property sufficient enough to feel comfortable to waive my inspection or waive my earnest money. Does that make sense? So then when we sign waiving the inspection, I actually already did my inspection, so I'm okay to waive it. Now what happens if I find something whack, like there's a foundation problem and the floors are sloping? What do? I call up the agent and I say, yeah, that contract you're about to send over, no go. Because my guy just walked the property, you didn't tell me it had a foundation issue, this number doesn't work anymore, don't send that, and I'm not signing. And maybe renegotiate at that point based on new information. Okay, does that make sense? So that's how I'll handle the no inspection. I never buy a property without obviously doing a walkthrough. That's not very smart. Okay, so you've got your inspection contingency, you've got your earnest money deposit, you've got your closing date. So this right here, what you're looking at, guys, this is actually what I call my offer sheet. So I send this offer sheet to the agent. I actually have this in my notes on my iPhone, and I'll copy and paste and text it to the agent or email it. So I have it also in an email document. And this is everything, again, that the agent needs to fill out the contract. Okay, so we got that, and then we've got access to the property. Remember we talked about that? How are you gonna get access to the property? And then we have who's gonna close. This is very important. When we wholesale, we wanna make sure that we're in control of title, aren't we? Who's closing the contract? You wanna be in control of your closing company, and then any other terms that you might wanna include in your offer. So again, I mentioned this, I'm gonna say it really quickly. It's really about the relationship. Create that relationship with that agent, and you're gonna have deals ongoing for years to come. I have agents now that I'm still doing deals with from 10, 15 years ago. Isn't that powerful? So guys, go out there, crush on market. Thank you for your time. Appreciate you guys. I hope this was helpful. Sorry, Pat, I went over 14 minutes.
Jerry Norton!
Carlos.
You bought a beat? You bought a beat? Oh.